You. Let's return now to that breaking news we brought you a short time ago. Australia's Taipan helicopters will not return to flying operations before their planned withdrawal next year. There's been major issues with the aircraft. Most recently, 4 crew died when a Taipan crashed into the sea near Hamilton Island during military exercises. Joining me now live for more on this is the Shadow Cybersecurity Minister, James Patterson. Appreciate your time this morning. What's your reaction to this news?
Good morning, Danica. Well, look, this is expected and I think a sensible decision by the Australian Defence Force and the Albanese government. There have been known performance and safety issues with the Taipan platform for some time, and it was for that reason that the previous government initiated a process to acquire the Black Hawk helicopters from the United States to replace the Taipans. And again, I'm pleased that the Albanese government has followed through on that decision and will be acquiring those Black Hawks to replace the Taipans. Given that they were going to be phased out already and given that they were involved in this recent tragic, very high-profile safety incident, I think it is sensible that they will not return to service.
The government has been looking at speeding up the rollout of the Black Hawk helicopters, as you mentioned. Without the Taipan now, are we left open? How quickly do we need to get that replacement up and running?
Well, my colleagues Philip Thompson and Andrew Hastie, who flew on these aircraft when they served in Afghanistan, have been calling for some time to accelerate the rollout of the Black Hawks for 2 reasons. One is we know the Black Hawk is a superior platform. It's safer and it is more effective and more capable. In Afghanistan, they often felt relieved when it was a Black Hawk that came to service them or assist them and not a Taipan. But the other reason is because we can't afford to have a gap in capability. We don't want to have a period of time where we don't have any helicopters available to the ADF, and so it is really important that the Black Hawks are brought into a service as soon as possible, and I hope the government is doing everything they can with our American friends to bring forward that date of delivery.
All right, let's move on now. I want to ask you about the Aviation Senate inquiry. It's been revealed the Transport Minister, Catherine King, prevented her department from opening negotiations with Qatar Airways after it did request additional flights. Are we any closer, do you think, to getting to the bottom of what has occurred here?
Unfortunately, I don't think we are any closer to getting the real answer and the real reason why Catherine King made the decision she did, but all the information that's coming forward is deeply disturbing about her maladministration of this process. It doesn't stack up and it doesn't add up, and Australians are rightly sceptical of all of the different shifting explanations and often contradictory explanations that the Minister and the government has given. What we do know is there's a very cosy relationship between Qantas and the government, a particular bromance between Albo and Joyce and the Prime Minister, and of course, Qantas is a very important supporter of the failing Yes campaign in the referendum. And often it looks to us from the outside that this is some kind of quid pro quo here, that the free flights for the Yes campaigners, the stickers on the plane to support the referendum, coincided, perhaps not coincidentally, with a decision to protect Qantas by protecting it from the competition of Qatar.
Albo and Joyce has been threatened with jail time. Do you think that that's an empty threat, or could he possibly be found in contempt of the Senate if he doesn't appear?
It's not an empty threat at all. It's a very serious one, and one which the Senate and its committees must be prepared to follow through on, because otherwise witnesses who are required to appear before the Senate will just choose not to comply in the future, and that would fundamentally undermine our parliamentary system. It is incredibly important that when Albo and Joyce returns to Australia, that he appears before the committee and he gives evidence, because only he is in possession of some of the information required to get to the bottom of this issue, and the committee will not be allowed to be able to complete its work unless he appears. And frankly, Australians deserve these answers. These powers are given to Senate committees for very good reason, because we are asking questions on behalf of the Australian people, and the Australian people deserve answers.
Yeah, it's certainly been an interesting Senate inquiry. It'll be interesting to see what happens. I just want to ask you, the Disability Royal Commission will release its report today. The sector has been calling for changes for some time. How likely is it that we will see some meaningful change?
Look, I hope and I think it's highly likely that the previous government commissioned this Royal Commission after very distressing stories of abuse and neglect were being brought forward by people with disabilities and their families, and some excellent journalism covering and bringing those abuses to light. And it is appropriate that this inquiry has taken place. I hope that people with disabilities and their friends and their families feel that they have been heard through this process. I hope they feel vindicated by this process. But most importantly, I hope that there is real action to address the problems that have been brought forward. It can't be left unaddressed any longer.
Before we let you go, new laws will prohibit companies from targeting ads at children and selling their private data. Do you support these new changes?
Look, we're looking very closely at the Privacy Act changes being brought forward by the Attorney-General. Certainly updating of our privacy laws is welcome and necessary. We've all seen the consequences of privacy failures and lapses by some of Australia's largest companies, so that's welcome. But we do want to look at the detail because it's an extremely complex area of law, and we wouldn't want to see an inadvertent increase in the regulatory burden, particularly on small businesses who often find it difficult to comply with this kind of regulation. So we're hoping that the government has got the balance right, but we'll wait until we've got the detail from the Attorney-General.
All right, James Patterson, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Stay with us.